One of the quieter misconceptions about the Korean War is that material failure was primarily a problem of weapons and vehicles. In reality, a significant amount of loss came from infrastructure that simply could not survive the climate. Timber bridges warped, rotted, or collapsed under freeze-thaw cycles. Wooden supply depots failed in months. The lesson, learned too late, was that modern industry had forgotten something older societies understood. Well, durability is not only about strength, but about how materials live with water, soil, and time. That forgotten understanding is where today's story begins. If you value this kind of long-view history, the kind that connects medieval practices to modern failure, consider subscribing to History Matters. This channel exists for viewers who want more than timelines and battles. With that said, let's move directly into the medieval methods that produced wood. So durable, it still challenges modern engineering assumptions. Medieval builders did not fight rot, they designed around it. Medieval builders did not think of rot as an enemy to be chemically defeated. They treated it as a predictable biological process that could be slowed, redirected, or starved. Their approach was not a single secret, but a system. Tree selection, timing, shaping, placement, and maintenance all worked together to create wood that endured centuries of rain, frost, and burial. What survives today, bridge pilings, cathedral beams, harbour timbers, is not accidental. These structures reflect decisions made decades before construction even began. Tree selection mattered more than any treatment applied afterward. Medieval foresters really understood that not all trees were equal, even within the same species. Oak, grown slowly in dense forests, produced tight grain and high tannin content, making it naturally resistant to insects and fungal decay. And, pine grown on poor rocky soil carried higher resin concentrations than the same species grown quickly on rich land. Trees were selected for purpose. Ship timbers, foundations, and water-facing structures used heartwood almost exclusively. Sapwood, which is more vulnerable to decay, was either removed or assigned to short-lived components. This kind of biological discrimination reduced rot before any preservation method was applied. Timing the cut controlled moisture long before drying sheds ever existed. Trees were typically felled in late winter, when sap levels were lowest. This reduced internal sugars that fuel fungal growth and, slowed the initial breakdown of fibers. Medieval records from monastic estates and royal forests repeatedly reference seasonal cutting rules, enforced not for superstition but for performance. Fresh-cut timber was not rushed into use. Instead, it was allowed to season slowly, often in shaded, ventilated areas where moisture escaped gradually without cracking. Rapid drying, which is pretty common in modern processing, actually weakens the internal structure and invites decay. One of the most misunderstood medieval techniques was deliberate waterlogging. Timber destined for bridges, harbour works and foundations was submerged in rivers, ponds or tidal zones for months or even years. This was not preservation through soaking, but really through deprivation. Sugars and starches leached out of the wood, leaving little nutrition for bacteria or fungi, and with oxygen levels remaining low, biological activity was slowed even further. When eventually placed in structures, often still damp, the wood was already hostile to decay organisms. This method explains why medieval bridge pilings recovered today are often structurally sound below the waterline after centuries. Charring timber ends before burial was, widespread across medieval Europe. Light surface burning closed the pores, killed surface organisms, and created a carbon layer that was resistant to insects and moisture. Unlike modern pressure-treated wood, this method added no toxins and, when done correctly, did not compromise the internal strength. Posts, fence lines, and foundation supports, they benefited the most. Archaeological sites actually show charred posts outlasting uncharred replacements by generations. The key here was restraint. Charring stopped at the surface, preserving the structural integrity. In oak-rich regions, tannins played a central role. Timber soaked in tannin-rich water or placed in environments where tannins leached naturally gained antifungal properties. Lime, which was used extensively in medieval construction, further discouraged microbial growth when wood was embedded in masonry. So, smoke curing, especially in roof structures and granaries, deposited these phenolic compounds that deterred insects and, well, slowed decay. Interestingly, these methods didn't work by sealing wood completely, but rather by making it biologically uninviting. Medieval builders, they elevated structures, extended roof overhangs and separated wood from constant soil contact whenever possible. Moisture management was really structural, not chemical. Water was directed away, airflow was encouraged, and replaceable components were planned from the very start. Cathedrals, which are often assumed to be purely stone, actually relied on vast timber frameworks protected by design rather than treatment alone. Many of those beams still exist today, their longevity owed to dry environments and, well, thoughtful load distribution. Medieval durability really depended on maintenance, not on some notion of permanence. Timber was inspected, repaired, and replaced in a very methodical way. Buildings weren't just abandoned at the first sign of decay. Instead, they were treated as managed ecosystems. This whole mindset is, well, quite different from what we see in modern construction, which so often assumes materials are just maintenance-free. Medieval builders, on the other hand, expected intervention and actually designed for it, making sure that decay never, reached catastrophic stages. With industrialization, priorities shifted towards speed, uniformity, and chemical solutions. Fast-grown timber replaced slow-grown wood, and artificial preservatives took the place of ecological understanding. The result, really, was convenience, not longevity. Conflicts like the Korean War exposed the consequences. Structures failed under environmental stress, not because they were poorly built, but because they were built without respect for climate, moisture, and time. Medieval builders would have recognized the failure immediately. Medieval anti-rot methods worked because they respected biology instead of trying to overpower it. Wood lasted not because it was indestructible, but because it was understood. Every decision, from forest to foundation, reduced decay's opportunities. This knowledge matters today, not as nostalgia, but as instruction. As modern societies face resource constraints and environmental volatility, these older systems offer proven strategies grounded in observation and restraint. Remembering how medieval builders made wood endure reminds us that durability is a cultural achievement, not just a technical one. If you value history that reveals these deeper patterns, subscribe to History Matters and share this video with others who care about understanding the past beyond surface-level narratives.